It has been reported that after the assassination of the now deceased Republican conservative activist Charlie Kirk, that Utah Democrats received threatening voice messages in the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing. Tyrone Bowman live. Let's talk about this article according to ABC News by Sasha Pezinnik. Just hours after an gunned down conservative commentator Charlie Kirk on the Utah Valley University campus Wednesday, voice messages containing a torrent of explicit-laden insults were sent to Democratic members of the Utah State House, blaming them for Kirk's killing. According to audio of two calls obtained by ABC News. The calls came in just after 10 p.m. on Wednesday night to House Democrats staff. Work numbers from an unidentified male caller who called the Democrats, quote, demons, end quote, and enemies to the American people. You should find somewhere else to effing live, you murderous terrorist animals, you despicable effing subhuman, effing violent, disgusting effing animals. You murdered that man in front of his effing family. You evil effing pieces of blank. Subhuman effing garbage, the man said. I don't even want to see effing color blue in the state of Utah ever again. I'm going to burn everything blue in my entire effing house. Quote, close quote. Now, this is a transcript from an audio call that was received. Without any evidence whatsoever that anybody from the Democratic Party was behind this, they automatically rushed to judgment and blamed the Democrats. Why? Because of their opposition, of ideological differences, of political policies. Way before the governor of Utah said they captured the MAGA Republican who was responsible for it, way before a news conference was called, they automatically assumed that somebody from the Democratic side did this awful deed. We don't want to hear that, they were emotionally upset and they didn't know what they were doing. They knew darn well what they were doing and what they were saying. The article goes on to say, in a second message, the same caller directly addressed a staff member by name and told them to, quote, leave the effing state, end quote. Quote, you murdered that man in front of his effing family. The caller said, adding Democrats nationwide belonged in hell, close quote. This was the sentiment that was raging throughout Utah, raging around the country, raging on the conservative outlets and networks. But now you don't hear a peep out of these same people when they found out that the individual was white, male, and that he was a part of MAGA. Now they're going along very quietly. They're trying to clean up their statements that they made. Utah House Democrats have shared with law enforcement the threatening voicemails and emails they received in the wake of Kirk's assassination, House Majority Leader Representative Angela Romero told ABC News. Romero added that the calls were particularly intimidating at this raw time of heightened political tension and rhetoric. It made me feel uneasy, especially being a woman and a woman of color in a super red state, so this was a black woman that they intimidated and threatened. So it's not like this is my first rodeo, but this really made me feel uncomfortable, Romero said. See, they don't want to deal with the race issue, the race factor in the midst of all this. There was a race factor in the midst of this. Somebody from the Democratic Party, somebody black. That's what they were hoping. That's why the governor was so dejected during this press conference. He didn't want to really acknowledge the fact that it was one of their own in their own state. because he desperately wanted it to be someone else other than. You can go watch the press conference for yourself. That's how the governor felt. She said a simple caller told her, I was despicable. I shouldn't serve in office. It's my fault that Mr. Kirk was murdered. This is what they told the black woman. Other lawmakers have said they received threats following Kirk's killing. Representative Nancy Mace, listen, a Republican, a MAGA Republican who is running for governor in South Carolina, announced Friday her office had been bombarded with threatening phone calls and accused Democrats for the hateful messages. How the hell would she even think that the Democrats did this? I believe she's a liar. That's the same woman that accused the Democrats of doing this. That is to make it look like that what the black woman was saying didn't have any forbearance on it. No, she's trying to garner support, probably for her failing candidacy to become the next governor of South Carolina. And she's using this as a weapon of politicalization to raise money. How dare her use the death of Charlie Kirk to further her political career. And they're doing it behind the scenes. Oh, they're doing it online. They're doing it through direct mailing. They don't have the tenacity and the chutzpah to come before the cameras to say what they really believe and how they really feel, but they're accusing the Democrats in their writings and in their campaign slogans. Whether you all like it or not, that's the plain truth. The vitriol levied at uninvolved lawmakers since Wednesday's shooting has had a chilling effect on the American tradition of lawmakers' community engagement, as well as the open debate and political discord Kirk himself espoused. Romario said she has canceled her own door knocking that she had been scheduled for this weekend. She had planned on canvassing and getting people's feedback as they're poised to go through redistricting. She has recommended that others in her caucus consider doing the same. And when somebody from the Democratic side gets murdered and gets killed, because some deranged person is going to do it, then what? Will there be any empathy? Will there be any flags at half mast? Will there be any kind words? Will the sympathetic gathering and showing show up then? It goes on to say, quote, I decided this probably wasn't the best time, and I'd rather people be safe than be put in a compromising position, Romario said. I don't maybe agree with Kirk's political ideology, and this is what I was saying, but he still had a family that loved him. He still had a partner. He still had children. Just because you don't agree with someone on their policy stances doesn't mean that you silence their voices by murdering them, whether it was Mr. Kirk or whether it was Representative Hortman, Romero said, referencing to the Democratic lawmaker gunned down on her doorstep with her spouse earlier this year in another act of political violence. And nobody wants to talk about that event that happened. But it did happen. Can't ignore it. It's a stipulated fact. And this thing about censoring everybody from the Democratic side, they can't have free speech and only Republicans can have it. That's not going to work either. Romario said at the end of the day, we're all human, and it's sad that we've gotten to this place in our country where people can't even have conversations anymore. They don't want conversations. They want controversy, mayhem, pandemonium, confusion, discord, disunity between the races. The financial backers who back these organizations, they want to race war. They want civil discourse. And it's not over. This is far from being over. And Tyler Robinson has been in jail, in the Utah County Jail. And I'll be doing my research about him. I'm going to look for everything that I can find. Never surrender. Never quit.